Good morning, everyone, and Gwen, thank you for the introduction. Appreciate that, and thanks to MSI for giving me the opportunity to speak this morning. Again, my name is Churchwell. I'm on staff for National Trout Unlimited out of our Durango office. I live in the Animas River Valley, which, of course, has a fairly heavy level of water quality problems in our headwaters, and I'm also a regular participant and a longtime participant with the Animas River Stakeholders Group in Silverton, which we've already heard a little bit about this morning. I'm here to speak with you very briefly, and I'm sorry I don't have other than this beautiful visual aid, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, but thank you for putting that up. Excellent. I wanted to talk to you this morning about Good Samaritan legislation. Mark gave an excellent little primer for me, and I really appreciate that because that saves me a little bit of time. For me, Good Samaritan means we didn't cause the problem, but we'd like to fix it. And case in point, the organization that I work for, we are certainly interested in water quality issues, and therefore we do participate in mine remediation work around the country. We have people on staff who do that type of work. In fact, my colleague Jason is in the audience today. So Good Samaritan legislation, I've only got a limited amount of time and I'm not a legal scholar, so I won't go into great detail, but I think we can talk about it in general terms. If I may, though, let me ask the question with a raise of hands. Do most people in the room understand what Good Samaritan legislation does? That's excellent. I won't have to spend too much time on that. Good Samaritan legislation, there have been many attempts over the last 20 or 25 years to pass Good Samaritan legislation. Our own Mark Udall was a big champion of Good Samaritan legislation for a lot of years. But really for about 20 or 25 years there's been numerous attempts. None of them have been successful. I won't go into detail on why that is, but it's primarily political issues that have prevented us from being able to pass national Good Samaritan legislation. Included in that history of Good Samaritan legislation was the last congressional session, which just concluded in December. Our Senator Udall, Senator Bennett, and Representative Scott Tipton, who is our representative here in the 3rd District, they introduced national Good Sam legislation in the last Congress. After introduction, no effort was put towards passing that legislation. I think Congress was a little too busy fighting with each other to actually do some work. But nonetheless, we need to make another attempt at this. So right after the first of the year, Senator Bennett's staffer in Durango and Scott Tipton's staffer invited myself and, excuse me, a couple of the members of the Animas River Stakeholders Group into their office and said we are committed to finding a way for Good Samaritans to do mine remediation work. We want to champion a bill again, but we want to see if we can do something different that has not been attempted before in an effort to try to pass national Good Sam legislation. So we got to talking about it in this meeting and decided that possibly the way to get this done would be for doing pilot legislation, if you will, site-specific Good Samaritan legislation with a defined geographic boundary as opposed to a national bill. And so that is where we are at the moment. These two delegates are in the process of writing Good Samaritan legislation. They are using the Udall-Tipton bill from the last congressional session as their model. We think that it's going to be essentially the same bill. However, it will have geographic limits where the bill will be applicable. And so our group started talking about where would it be best to utilize Good Samaritan legislation on a local level as a pilot program to show that Good Samaritan can be done, that it can be successful, that we can perform mine remediation work after enactment of the bill and clean up some of our waters. And so we started talking about how could we do that, what would be the geographic boundaries, and although that final decision has not been made exactly, and that will be a choice for those two delegates, but we are quite positive that the bill will be restricted to just the counties of the San Juan Mountains region of southwest Colorado. So the idea here is to eliminate some of the political pressure and opposition that Good Sam legislation has had to battle in the past. The bill would be applicable in only Mr. Tipton's district and nowhere else. So we feel that we have an opportunity here to possibly pass Good Samaritan legislation finally and show that we can do it and do it in the San Juan Mountains, and then hopefully sometime down the road then possibly go after a national bill again and see if we can't maybe get something done on a broader scale so that the folks around the country like Trout Unlimited and watershed groups and other non-responsible parties could get in there and do some mine remediation work. So with that said, they have asked Trout Unlimited and myself to coordinate this campaign. Our delegates do not have the time nor the capacity to go out at a really broad and extensive level and reach out to communities to talk about this issue and to gain support for the bill that they're working on. To that point, again, they are working on the bill as we speak. Their legislative staff in D.C. Is working on the legislation now. They are taking feedback from watershed groups, from county commissioners, from industry and agencies, trying to formulate a bill with, again, the geographic parameters here in the San Juan Mountains. We are told that they are going to introduce the bill in the next month to 2 months, sometime around the end of July end of June and early July. And so as that bill gets written, we'll know a little bit more exactly when the introduction date will be, but probably in the next month or two. In an effort to help them along and provide the backing and support that they're going to need to get a bill through Congress, and this will be a national bill in the sense that, of course, has to go through the normal congressional process in D.C., but again, it will be just restricted here to the San Juan Mountains for its application. We're building a coalition to support them. I've been fortunate enough to work on another national bill in the last few years, the Hermosa Creek Watershed Protection Act, which Senator Bennett and Representative Tipton worked on with us, and we were successful in getting that passed in December. And I can tell you that the way that we can get legislation passed is with huge community support. That's what we have to have. So what these two delegates have asked myself and Trout Unlimited to do is to lead a campaign and to help bring the support that they need to work this bill through the congressional process in D.C. So towards that end, we have just embarked on this campaign. It's brand new. In fact, our website, which is up here on the board here, just launched last night, as a matter of fact. And I was on the phone about 10 o'clock last night with our web designer. This thing's got to be done tomorrow. So anyway, it just launched. There's a lot of work running one of these campaigns, and again, we're just getting started. But the idea here is to build a coalition of support for this legislation in and around the San Juans area. The web address is sanjuancleanwater.org. This is a coalition of citizens and businesses and local communities in support of this effort. We want to provide our delegates as much support as we can possibly give them and also demonstrate to the good folks in D.C. that the people in the communities in and around the San Juan Mountains have a problem with mine impaired waters, that we want to clean it up, that they're well-intended and well-qualified and funded organizations, individuals, and watershed groups that are ready to do this work. But what we need is liability relief in the terms of a Good Samaritan legislation, and that's what this is about. So I'm here today to ask you guys to join us in support. We are going to do as much as we can between now and bill introduction to demonstrate the support for the bill and the general concept of the idea. So from between now and bill introduction, we're looking for support letters from the counties, from the boards of county commissioners here in the San Juan regions, from watershed groups, from town councils, and definitely individuals. So what I would ask you all to do is to visit our website at your earliest convenience. It is quite informative on exactly what is Good Sam, where would it be applicable, what are the limitations, this sort of a thing if you need to better understand the problem. And we have a Take Action page where we're asking people to join and provide for us an email address and a formal declaration of support for this bill. So we would encourage you to go ahead and visit the site. I've put flyers out on your tables this morning. That's not our official brochure. Again, I just built that on my computer to get us to this point today. We will be building a more professional, if you will, brochure that I will provide to watershed groups, to anyone in the room who might be going to a presentation or a meeting of some sort where they'd like to engage people. We'll have brochures for those folks. It takes a lot of support to get a bill through D.C. I mean, in working with the Hermosa legislation, I was floored at how hard it is to get a bill through Congress. This won't be easy either. But defining the scope much smaller than a national bill, showing that we can do it here in the San Juan Mountains is hopefully what will be required to actually get a national bill sometime in the future. So my contact information is on the website, also on the brochure that I handed out. I'm in Durango, and this is vitally important to me. I live in Durango because the Animas River is one of the greatest trout rivers in the world. And we have some issues with it, and we'd like to get it cleaned up. So do visit the website. Please show your support. Let me know if there's anything I can do for your communities, if I can come give a presentation for your city council or for whatever watershed groups, that sort of a thing. So with that said, I want to entertain some questions real quick if we can. I'll be around most of the day today. Certainly grab me at lunch if you have other questions, but if any of you have questions, can we start there?
Is there a draft of the bill on your website?
There is not a draft of the bill yet. Again, they were being told that they're going to use the last congressional session, the Udall-Tipton bill, as the model. We are recommending, Trout Unlimited helped write that legislation with Mark Udall. And so we're also participating with our staff in D.C. in putting the legislation together. We're asking for support right now as a general concept. Certainly, once a bill is written, that will be made available. We'll put it up on the website. The delegates will have a copy of it on their websites as well. And we'll want to certainly review the bill to make sure it does what we want it to do.
Is there any additional funding associated with the bill?
There is no funding. There's no appropriations associated with this, no funding source whatsoever. This is simply about removing the liability hurdle that's in place that Mark spoke of this morning, so that good and well-intended groups can get in there and do some work. Yes, sir.
So what's the main source of opposition to passing a good sample? Are the people that just don't want the corporations left up the liability?
Yeah. The question is, what's been the political hurdle in the past? I won't go into politics too much. In order to do this, really what we have to do, and what Good Samaritan legislation does in the simplest of terms, is it amends the Clean Water Act, is what it does. It will essentially create a new discharge permit category for Good Samaritans. The political opposition has been that we have to open up the Clean Water Act to an amendment, and a lot of people are not interested in even opening that door this much, even though what hopefully would come out the bottom end would be better, cleaner water. But it's a scary proposition to open up an environmental bill of such high importance as the Clean Water Act. It's a wonderful act and has performed well for us over the last 40 or so years, but that's part of it, is really the concern with that. And we're going to try to overcome that with doing it locally here first, and that's where we are for the moment. Others? Yes, sir.
This is a subject I know almost nothing about, which leaves me free to make a suggestion.
Okay, and we're looking for those.
It would seem to me that if you made this a Colorado bill, you would pick up an awful lot more people supporting it.
Yeah, that's a good point, and no formal decisions have been made about this yet, and although the delegates are certainly asking for community and constituent input, the thinking is to keep it strictly within Mr. Tipton's district right now, which is the West Slope and the southern part of the state. You're absolutely correct. There's an argument to be made to make it a Colorado bill. There's an argument to be made to make it a very, very small bill. It's political in nature. I mean, there's strategy to getting a bill through Congress, and you have to sort of work with the system. And the thinking is at this time, being the San Juan Mountains are some of the most highly mineralized mountains in the world, and we certainly have ample examples of the problem right here in our region, that if we could just keep this small, do it small, get a bill passed, demonstrate it can be done, and then we can go after another bill down the road. That could be a Colorado-only bill, could be a bill for the western half of the country. Who knows what that looks like, but you make a very good point. Others? Sir?
Yeah, since we opened up the stage for a little bit of political discussion, I've been noting, that the main issue with a lot of these environmental issues and a lot of the good bills like Superfund bill, the Clean Water Act, cleaning up mining, is based on funding. It's money, 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 money. And then I see that we don't have the money for this, the Superfund's out of money. We're looking at your notes here on the clean 500,000 abandoned hard rock mines, estimated cost ranging 36 to 72 billion cleanup. We also had the passive treatment figure that came up a minute ago, 1 to 2 million per year in perpetuity. I'd like for people to keep in mind that the United States is not broke. We have the money for these deals. 72 billion funded Afghanistan for 1 year. And we are allowing our representatives and our senators to continue to vote for these wars that have cost plus or minus $6 trillion in the last since 2001. Now we've seen a lot lower comments, but when you look at the NSA, the CIA, all these various military operations, which literally have not won one war since the World War II. No, seriously, it's
No,
going down the drain. And we have the money, so please don't let the idea that we don't have the money come into your mind, because as we go to our politicians in these meetings, what are our goals and objectives for the future?
Right.
We're going to continue to fight endless wars and then let mine
Right.
minerals that we need. So that's my point.
You-
I want to say funding is not an issue.
Thank you, and I'm glad you said that. I agree with you. The money is there. The money is there. This is not an appropriations bill. We have to get over the liability hurdle first, then we can get the money. And as someone who works for a nonprofit organization who relies on money to perform the work that we do out in the field, I often say to people, don't let the money be the issue. We can find the money. We can go after the money. But right now, before we can even have that discussion, we have to get the liability issue out of the way, and that's, of course, what this is. So when we have one more, do we have time for one more, sir?
Yeah. This being a pilot program, are there results that you are looking for in order to take it forward to a national?
Yeah, that's a good point. Lynn Padgett, Commissioner for Ouray County, of course, has been a longtime advocate for this, and she's participating in this conversation as well with the delegates. She's outlined some criteria-based parameters that should probably be included in the legislation. I happen to agree with her. I think that it's important to not just open the floodgates completely, if you will, but put some parameters on it. One of those parameters, if not the most important parameter, is this Good Sam bill will apply to abandoned and orphaned mine sites only. And I should have made that very clear in the beginning. If we have a PRP, a potentially responsible party, this Good Sam bill will not address that. And to this gentleman's question about what has been some of the issue in the past, the worry that we're going to be letting industry off the hook or letting somebody off the hook for their pollution, and that's an issue that, of course, Trout Unlimited is concerned about as well. We won't support a bill that does anything like that, nor will it ever get anywhere. So that's a really excellent point, and there is some criteria that we're going to have to address. And that's part of the reason why the two delegates are taking some feedback from people in the community and reaching out to industry folks and other nonprofits who work in this arena to hopefully craft a bill that can get to the finish line and to the president for a signature. So thank you all. I really appreciate the time. Do please visit the website, go to the sign-up page, put your name on there, share this campaign with your friends, put it up on Facebook. We also have a Facebook page, same thing, San Juan Clean Water. We have to demonstrate massive support, and what I would like to do 2 months from now is go to DC with a stack of support letters from every community in and around the San Juans that they support the concept of cleaning up mines. So thank you all for the time.